welcome to the Brinker Leadership Series, Extraordinary Leaders in Extraordinary Times by Adi Partners. I'm Hiral Desai.
COVID-19, the pandemic of this millennium, has changed our lives irrevocably. And Hiral, you and I have spoken about this. And when we believe people fighting this pandemic at the coalface that you and I talk to, be it in healthcare, travel, supply chain, government, non-profit, and media, deserve recognition.
Absolutely. Through the Brinker Leadership Series, Sanjay, we will continue to identify extraordinary leaders in these extraordinary times. And this is very similar to legendary 15-year-old boy who mythically saved his nation from being flooded.
Indeed. And as we saw, Hiral, in some of the previous episodes, when we spoke to leaders from healthcare and non-profit sector in particular, we realized how they are at the forefront of this battle against the virus. And in all of this, there's another sector which most people don't realize and they don't get mentioned as much, which is the hospitality sector. I mean, there's always this notion that this is a sector that's wrapped in glamour, right? But when you come to think of it, and based on our research, we realize that a lot of the COVID patients are quarantined in hotels because hospitals have run out of beds. And then you've got relatives of COVID-inflicted patients who are now staying at these hotels. So in many cases, people from hospitality are only 1 degree away from a COVID-inflicted patient. So, and all of this, when you think about it, that the folks working in the hospitality sector are actually working with pay cuts. And because it's a sector that's burdened by diminishing revenues in these times, just like some of the others we've seen, which makes it even more extraordinary. And it is in this context that we want to introduce you to an extraordinary leader who has put her health and well-being and her family at risk while fighting this battle against the coronavirus on the front lines. Jenvie Peters, Executive Assistant Manager, Lemon Tree Hotel, Mumbai. And Lemon Tree, incidentally, Hiral, has come to the relief of several guests, of both quarantined patients as well as families of inflicted patients, as well as guests who are stuck in the country before they leave the shores. So welcome to the show, Jenvie.
Thank you, Mr. Viswanathan. Thank you for hosting me on this show. And definitely Lemon Tree will be very happy to see me hosting this great leader show.
Thank you, Jenvie. Jenvie, if you could just give us an idea of what has this been like to be on the front line. Has your role really changed during COVID?
So I think the overall outlook has been just it has to be very positive and confident that, we will sail through this. Frontlines, while at the initial stage, there was a lot of apprehensions, that everyone were very apprehensions about what will happen. But I think now it's become a way of living, and they've started adapting this. So obviously sanitization remains a key. And we ensure that no stone is unturned, for guests and associates. My endeavor as a leader is to ensure that I keep the morale very high of the team, and most important, stay connected to all my team members who are unable to commute because of the lockdown. And very, very important is to ensure that we share the right piece of information, because there's so much happening and so much floating around the market, which is true, untrue, non-credible. So we need to ensure that, we share the right piece of information, which is necessary, avoid unwarranted panic.
Absolutely. We need to avoid unwarranted panic. Well said. So is the property available to stranded guests only, or are there even, frontline doctors, nurses probably, or even someone on the police side who might need accommodation?
So the hotel is definitely functional for all the stranded guests. In fact, we had quite a few guests who stayed with us during the lockdown, obviously because they were unable to, go back to their hometown. And we've also associated and actively participated in the Vande Bharat mission for the rescue flight. The focus has remained to ensure that, affordable to guests staying in house and to ensure that they can stride through these times with us.
Right. And overall, what are the kind of precautions are you taking while at work?
So we've laid some ground rules, which is applicable for both the guest and our employees. Obviously, ensuring they wear face masks all the time when they are in the premises. Keep sanitizing themselves, their hands while they are, in the premises. We've ensured that sanitizers are placed in all the public areas and it's accessible. Face masks are also accessible, and they should ensure that government recommended practices is applicable for coughing, sneezing, and we also do a lot of temperature recording for both guest and for our associate and any vendor also who's entering the premises. And if we feel there is any ambiguity there, we ensure that the person is assisted with the nearest hospital or healthcare facility. So these are the ground rules, house rules for everyone in the hotel currently.
Got it. So when we think about guests here, Jenvie, what is the state of mind of some of the guests that are staying at your property?
So while the guests are very understanding of the situation and the requirement of the lockdown, with passing time, the anxiety level has slowly arisen, with obviously everybody wants to reach their loved ones. And Mumbai has seen a very steady incline in the number of reported cases, as you're aware, which is definitely not a good sign and a news. So we do ensure we make them feel home, of course, with social distancing and new norms of COVID. And but now I think the guests have also understood and they started refraining to their rooms only and very limited conversations, which is simmered down to only on calls rather than how hospitality is, with a lot of personalization is obviously restricted.
Got it. You mentioned an aspect that I want to pick up, which is social distancing. I would imagine with guests, it might be easier to practice that because they're probably in their areas and rooms and so on. But how do you do that among employees even? Is that a challenge? Because, you're very much in the trenches with the troops, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So we all understand this is the new way of life, and for some time and understanding the severity, we've ensured that we implemented a chain-wide SOPs and brand standard for all the transaction that happens on a day-to-day basis, for both for guests and for employees. And as mentioned earlier, guests are now staying in the rooms. They are restricted only to their rooms, and there's a complete set of guidelines which we've put in place, like how to take a check-in, how to obviously get the room serviced, and from an in-room dining to an order taking to a delivering. So we have a set. We also leave a question answer and a quiz session for all our associate with briefings. So they are absolutely aligned with the current ongoing brand standard and SOP. Obviously, it's all for the safety of everyone out here at the hotel.
Right. So that's all about, how you maintain social distancing and all with the guests. But if you have to talk about the employee side of it, how is the staff coping with this kind of change?
So, Hiral, as a leader, I think I'm absolutely blessed with a wonderful team working here, which I have presently. The kind of responsibility each one has shown has truly been commendable. They've really adapted, the change in terms of standards, implementing them, remain, which is the crux of the entire COVID. Caution, sanitization, they've been really phenomenal in taking charge of it. And morals are obviously high, which we've ensured that, that's been the core, so that, they're also away from their families at the hotel stranded, just like the guest. And they've really come out with a lot of out of the box thinking, during this period also. And we definitely intend to adapt these in the coming time. And as the saying goes, necessity is the mother of inventions. And I feel it's the right time to have your thinking hats on and collaboratively redefine standards.
Yes, you need to redefine standards. Absolutely, well said. And on that, then, how does your typical day look like? What is the kind of challenges that you're facing, your staff face on a daily basis?
So, the biggest challenge right now is business that all the industries are facing and contemplating when the turnaround will happen. But the best part about our industry is that we do not have a typical day. There's absolutely no monotony. It still remains the same.
Hmm.
Approaches and priorities have obviously changed because there's more focused on sanitization, hygiene, keeping people highly motivated and briefed about the developments. Availability of supplies, can sometimes be sporadic, leaving the less spread because which used to be earlier we would do advanced planning. That obviously doesn't happen, and there's a lot of last minute decisions which you have to take. That's the kind of challenges we face on a daily basis.
It's amazing, especially when you talk about some of your changes in SOPs and the planning methods that you put in place. One of the things that we'd love to know is you have guests who are staying with you for a long period of time. These long stay guests, right?
Mhm.
And in the current COVID scenario, when many of them are probably dying to go home and they're having to stay back at the hotel, how do you incentivize them to stay with you all for that period of time?
Okay. So, as we know, hospitality is in our DNA, and we are bound to be courteous and taking care of our guests. Time like these requires a lot of extra attention, and really need to take care of their anxieties because the situation outside is, can really scare them. But we have definitely not been pompous about regards to guest requirements. We've tried to be courteous and general to major extent, and obviously the guests are obviously not expecting an experiential stay because they also understand the need of the hour. The tariffs which we are levying right now is considerably low because obviously because of the other usual rates that is prevalent in the city. Yeah.
Fascinating. And I think, Hiral, when we listen to Jenvie, there's a sense of purpose, isn't it, in this industry, which is in many ways, Jenvie, you're at odds because you're having to, as an industry, put on a brave, hospitable, welcoming face, and at the same time, there are deep challenges that the industry is facing because of diminishing revenues, traffic, et al., which is going to stay for quite some time. And one of the best practices that I think we can take this conversation among the several you spoke of is how you keep employees motivated in these difficult times. It's very similar to being a general in an army where you're up against a well-entrenched enemy. You don't have as much ammunition to fight, and yet you have to keep people motivated. It's remarkable, don't you think, Hiral?
Absolutely, Sanjay. I mean, it is really remarkable because motivation is something that really is needed at this hour, and not only to the employees, but even if you look at society, your colleagues, say probably even in terms of family members, you need to keep motivating each other as well to see that these times, shall pass as well. So thank you, Jenvie. Thank you for joining in. In fact, it was a pleasure having you on our show.
Thank
We will keep discovering and exploring more in this journey of the Hans Brinker Leadership Series. Thank you all for tuning in. Sanjay and I will be back to share more extraordinary leaders in these extraordinary times. See you soon.
Thank you, Hiral. Look forward.